If you're hustling in the trenches to build a business or bootstrapping one of your own, let's talk about an AI-powered tool that can lighten up your workload. HubSpot's Campaign Assistant is a game changer for creating marketing campaigns at scale. It quickly turns your key selling points into a cohesive pitch, which helps you deliver knockout emails, ads, and landing pages in minutes. Just choose your content type, input a few key points, pick a tone like friendly or witty, and let the AI robots handle the rest. You can copy and paste the content to whatever channel you'd like, or even convert it directly into publishable campaigns without leaving your HubSpot interface. So let Campaign Assistant take care of the campaigns so you can get back to growing your business. Work smarter, not harder at HubSpot.com/campaign-assistant. You're listening to Side Hustle Pro, the podcast that teaches you to build and grow your side hustle from passion project to profitable business. And I'm your host, Nicaila Matthews-Okome. So let's get started. Hey friends, hey, welcome back to the show. It's Nicaila here, back with another awesome guest. And today in the guest chair, we have Dawn Kelly, the CEO and founder of the Nourish Spot. A graduate of Howard University, Dawn's 30-plus year public and media relations career promoting campaigns and companies has taken her all around the world. Dawn calls herself an accidental but divine entrepreneur, as she expected to work for some big company until retirement. Some would say God had other plans. Dawn's life changed in September 2015 when a new boss eliminated her role. Relying upon her determination, faith, and own resources, Dawn is now a courageous entrepreneur. In March 2016, she and her young adult children, Owen and Jade, made the business decision to establish an S-Corp to provide healthier beverage and food options in the food desert of Southeast Queens through what's now known as the Nourish Spot, Inc. After her 3-decade-long corporate and nonprofit career, Dawn is now the CEO of the Nourish Spot, Inc., and it is a family-owned, quick-serve healthy food, smoothie, and natural juice bar located on the iconic Guy R. Brewer Boulevard in Jamaica, Queens, NYC. In today's episode, Dawn shares what it took to get here, how she funded her business when revenue was slow, and you'll also learn about the investment she makes in her own business education and network development to allow the Nourish Spot to grow and thrive. Let's get right into it. Okay, Dawn, welcome to the guest chair. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. You know the saying, remember the days when you prayed for? Well, today is one of those days. And I thank you.
I'm so honored to hear that. I thank you. I still can't believe I get to do this and that people are honored to be in this guest chair. I remember when I started this show in my living room. So I thank you. So, all right, guys, enough mushy stuff. We're going to jump right into it. So, Dawn, you're incredible. I read your bio before, so they have heard all about what you're up to, but I'd love to know a little bit more about your journey into entrepreneurship in your words. I mean, it's very unique. You were thinking you were going to be in corporate forever, and then what happened?
Well, I would consider myself a divine entrepreneur. In September of 2015, after working about 30 years in the public relations and marketing area, my last role as Department Vice President of Global Communications was eliminated at a major financial services firm. And that really threw my world into crisis because honestly, I had not thought about what would be my next act at the age of 52. I was 52 years old. And I actually thought that I would retire from that job and then, go off and, travel and see the world.
Right.
But retirement came early and I wasn't necessarily ready to retire. And so I had to, once I got over my grief, I had to figure out what I wanted to do next with my life and what kind of positive impact I wanted to make with the rest of my life. And jumping into entrepreneurship was the thing for me. I initially tried to start a PR firm with a
Okay.
friend, but people weren't trying to pay. And
Speak on it.
yes, and I wasn't interested in really, negotiating too much of my worth. I
Right.
know what I bring to the table and the years of experience and the awards and accolades that I had won during my 30-year career. And so I
Yep.
wasn't really ready to negotiate. So I jumped into something entirely different, becoming an entrepreneur of a food and beverage brand. But it's still aligned with my life because I was on my own health journey at that time.
Okay.
So that's how
It
I
all
jumped
started.
into. Yes, yes.
You touched on a few things. It's interesting you use the word grief. I don't think I have heard that before, but it is a grieving process when you shift gears, right? Grieving who you were and what you thought your life would be. And I just find it interesting that you use that word. What was it about that process for you that you had to grieve?
Well, the first thing was I had never in my life lost a job. I never
Mm,
had been unemployed, by the hand of someone else.
right.
So I had to get used to that. Like that was like shell shock for me. And so because I'm an overachiever, I went to college when I was 16. The job that I had, I was department vice president of global communications. I was traveling all over the world, promoting people, places, and things. I mean, I loved what I did. So to
Yeah.
have that snatched away in an instant, I grieved. I went home and I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. And so, I'm really happy that today I can say
Hmm.
to you with a smile that the grieving process worked. I needed it, right? I also
Yep.
needed the rest, right? And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
because being in a job for 16 years consecutively, that was a lot, right? And I guess I
Hmm.
didn't even really notice how exhausted I was. So it probably was a mixture of
So, what were the first steps you took to get started with the Nourish Spot?
I guess the first steps was deciding upon what it was that I was going to do after deciding that the PR firm wasn't going to be it for now, right? So, what happened was actually I was home one day watching TV because PR people love the news, and I was watching CNN, which was my favorite channel at that time, and
Mhm.
a story came on about Styles P, the rapper who
Yes.
opened Juices for Life in Yonkers. And I
Yep.
was really intrigued, right? I was really intrigued by the fact that one, he had decided to jump into something like that. And then two, I'm a healthy eater. I've always really been a healthy eater. My parents always made sure we ate fruits and vegetables like eggplant, stuff that I never really thought that I would eat, but been eating them my whole
Hmm.
life. And so I was like, maybe I can do that. And I was on my own health journey at the time because, being in corporate America, I was socially drinking, eating late, and honestly
Right.
not following a good diet. I
Hmm.
love bagels. I'm a New Yorker, so I love bagels and I loved carbonated soda. And so,
Yeah.
my weight took a toll over those years. And I found myself wearing a size 16 and I'm short. And so my body couldn't take it. My ankles couldn't take it. And my doctors were threatening me with all kind of medicine. And so it all just kind of aligned together. And
Hmm.
one day I found myself in Panera trying to customize a salad and they wouldn't let me. And I would tell you
Oh.
right then and there, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to start my own juice bar.
Hmm.
And that's really what started it. I started praying and asking God. My faith is very important to me. I started
Yes.
praying and asking God for guidance, right? Because, I've been an employee my whole life. And so, opening up a business was like a really great giant step. Okay. And so I started praying and asking for guidance. And, God didn't fail me. He gave me ideas of where I could establish it. And then, when you go to college, you know how to look for stuff, right? So then
Yes.
I just started looking for training, right? I started looking for programs that would teach me about running my own business. And
Okay.
that was what solidified I was going to do this, because I
I
realized
love that.
I could find the training to give me all of the information that I needed in order to run a business.
Yes. And you can find a training on almost anything. Even when you think, oh, no one else has done this. No, there's a training that can help you. So I love that you mentioned that. And also, did you invest in these? Were they free, or did you have to put up some money to do some of this?
Well, the first class I took, and let me just back up a little bit. I would tell you that
Yeah.
one of my favorite sayings that I always say to mentees, either when I was in corporate America and now as an entrepreneur, is you have to be willing to invest in yourself, right? Because
Absolutely.
not always will corporations invest in the things you want. So you need to put your dollars and cents, right? And I
Yep.
mean cents, CENTS and SENSE, right? You need to put that on for yourself. And so the first class I took was just $100. It was with the Queens Economic Development Corporation, because I'm from Jamaica, Queens, New York. And I took that class, and it was called like Business Fundamentals 101. And I would tell you,
Mm-hmm.
it was just enough to make me dangerous.
And how were you dangerous after that? What did you do next?
Well, I started learning about like different things like a balance
Mm-hmm.
sheet, profit and loss,
Oh,
right?
okay.
I knew I needed a budget. I found out that I needed to have a lawyer, an accountant. Like these are things
Yes.
I did not know, right?
Mm-hmm.
All I knew is that I was hell bent on creating something new for me and my children. I'm a single parent. I was
Mm-hmm.
raising 2 children. And so I wanted to make sure that I was leaving behind some generational wealth, or at least some generational knowledge, right? And
Okay.
so I paid that $100, and, I took that class, which was about 8 weeks. And, one of the things I really loved about that class is they sent us out on the street, right? To ask questions of just like general, people
What
in the
kind of
street,
questions?
questions about, because I wanted to open a juice bar, ask them about, do they eat healthy? What's their favorite vegetable? Would they pay $5,
Okay.
$10 for a smoothie, right?
Customer research. Got it.
Yes, yes. So
Good.
I went out, and that kind of emboldened me, right? Because where I took the class was not in the neighborhood where I was establishing the
Mm-hmm.
juice bar, right? Because I was
Right.
establishing the juice bar in my neighborhood where my family enjoys an 81-year history. So
Ooh.
it just gave me the confidence, right? And the chutzpah that if I needed to do research in my community, I could do it, because now I was doing it with
Yes.
strangers that didn't even know me. And so that was the thing that got me started. And then I got into my neighborhood, and I started asking my neighbors and people I knew in the community. I had my children ask their friends, and people were interested. People were telling me that they were going all the way to Harlem from Queens to find, smoothies and
Oh,
wheatgrass and
wow.
turmeric. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to be the solution to that challenge, right? You will no
Yes.
longer have to go to Harlem, 2 boroughs away, right? To get what you need. We're going to provide what you need right here in our community.
That is amazing. I love doing consumer research because you find out so much. And what's great about the approach that this class took is it made it less intimidating. Sometimes we think we need this whole Excel spreadsheet. No, just go out and talk to people. They may not be your ideal customer, but just getting into that rhythm gives you the confidence, and it triggers thoughts like, oh, wait, I didn't think if they would have that follow-up question, or wow, you're
Yes.
going to Harlem? I didn't even think about that. So I love that. You guys just start talking to people. With my podcast too, before I launched it, I got on the phone with people and I just started asking them questions like, would you listen to this? So I can totally relate to. Now, Dawn, so you were unemployed. So I'm interested. Were you doing anything else for money, or were you at that time living like, okay, I'm just going to take some time, live off my savings or unemployment while I figure this out? Or were you still looking for another job or working somewhere else?
No, actually, at this particular time, I was not working at all.
Okay.
I had been laid off. And so I just was relying on my severance package and money that I
Hmm.
had saved away. And I was being very ginger, very, very thoughtful about how
Yes.
I spent my coins.
Okay. Okay.
um, but one thing I would say is in my role at Prudential, one of the last projects I was engaged in with my team was a survey about African American financial experiences and behavior. And in
Yes.
that research, we learned just how much behind the eight ball most African Americans were in terms of the racial wealth gap and the reasons why. And one of them was about generational wealth, creating generational wealth. Another one was about the lack of
Mm.
entrepreneurs in small businesses in the Black community.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the research from that survey, it really stuck with me. Okay. Especially as I mentioned, I'm a mom. I have two children. I mean, they're young adults now, but still, it made me think like, what am I doing? Right. I had set up, of course, I have a house, yeah, I could leave that to my children, but would that be enough? And
Right.
so I thought, if anything, we could open the business together. And there's another saying about you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right?
Drink. Yep.
So I just wanted to at least lead my children to the business, right?
Hmm.
Ultimately, they would take advantage of it and engage in it if it was something that they agreed with. And luckily for me, my children, Owen and Jay Duncan, they've been instrumental in running the business. My daughter more so because she's a chef by trade. And so she and I work hand in hand to run the business each and every day. And I'm proud of that because now I feel like what I learned in that survey, I'm actually walking in it, right? I'm walking the talk. And so we're out here in these streets making people
Creating that.
healthier. Yes. And
Yes.
creating generational wealth together.
Right. And what you said about leading the horse to water is very key. It's very important because sometimes when people have this idea of generational wealth, they're making decisions for their kids. They don't give their kids any input and they're like, oh, I'm going to leave this to them. It's generational wealth. I put this in their name, this business in their name. Now they're set. Well, actually, what if they don't want to do that, right? What if they don't want that business? What happens when you involve them in the whole process? They now know how to run a business.
Yes.
They now know how to do this again somewhere else. So if, it takes a different shape when it's just them, that's okay. But they now have these skills. They weren't just handed something with no idea what goes into it.
Exactly. And I would tell you that my daughter has helped me from the get go. So, getting on LegalZoom, coming up with a name, doing trademarks,
Yes.
working with an attorney, developing the menu. Like we really work together hand in hand. I'm assured
Yes.
that if I had to walk away today, that she could keep the business going.
That's an amazing feeling. But talk to us a little about this LegalZoom. I started out that way too, and it could be controversial, but listen, it gets you started. So
It does. It
how did you
does.
come up with the name and do those initial first steps of, trademarking and all of that good stuff?
So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I really know how to do is research assistance, getting help,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yes.
So, the first thing we did go on LegalZoom and start the process, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's easy; it's right at your fingertips
Right.
using the computer. But before we hit the button and signed anything, I
Mm-hmm.
went off to SCORE, which is part of the
Mm.
SBA, and I think it's
Yes.
like retired executives. I don't know what the whole SCORE means, but
Right.
I went to SCORE and I actually sat down with that paperwork with two
Mm-hmm.
advisors and had them, walk me through good decisions, not so good decisions. And they actually suggested some great things that I changed before we hit send. To go to
Mm-hmm.
LegalZoom. So after we got the initial paperwork through LegalZoom, that's when I hired an attorney because by this time
Okay.
I was in another class with Interrise. It was called Streetwise MBA. And now this
Okay.
class, I did not have to pay anything except
Mm-hmm.
time and effort.
Okay.
right? Because sometimes it's not money that you have to give. You have to give your time and your effort. And so I won't lie. That class was very taxing, and
Okay.
we were now in business. And so, a couple of times, I won't lie, I thought about quitting
Oh,
because I was like,
really?
you know what? I'm in the business, and, this class is taking extra time away and it's taxing
Hmm.
my brain, and I'm not sure I
Hmm.
can do it all. But I'm not
It's
a
hard to
quitter.
be in the work and also be learning. It
It's
really is.
it's true, but I'm not a quitter. You know how Beyonce say, "A winner,
Right.
winners don't quit
To
on
quit on
themselves."
themselves. No.
And
No.
so I just buckled down and I completed the class. And now I was, way ahead of some of my peers, in terms of knowing how to run a business, and,
Hmm.
pricing was changing, all kind of things, finding sustainable goods, right? Just
Yes.
learning all types of different things, that will positively impact the business and the community at the same time. So
Okay.
that's really how the business began to grow and
Hmm.
expand. When it first started, it was just me, right? Because
Right.
we were new, and it was just me, greeting the customers, making the smoothies, making the juice. But then all of a sudden, because I did PR forever, I started promoting the business,
You
and
publicists. I love it.
yes,
Those
and
skills come in handy.
all of a sudden, people were coming from everywhere,
Hmm.
and I needed to find staff. And so I
Hmm.
reached out to my daughter because both my children were still working at this time. And so I
Right.
reached out to my daughter and was like, "Oh my God, we have too many customers. I can't do it all myself. What are we going to do?" And because she is a trained chef, she graduated from Johnson and Wales University. She said,
Hmm.
"Oh, I know what to do, mommy. Don't worry." And she reached out to all of the area high schools and
Hmm.
all of New York City's culinary programs. And we established our own internship training program.
What? That is
Yes,
so brilliant. I
yes.
love it.
And so now, we pretty much have our own talent pipeline because we get these interns from the area schools and area
Hmm.
nonprofits. They come in usually as 10th and 11th graders.
Okay.
And once they finish their 6 to 8 week internship, either they ask us or we ask them if they're interested in staying on board. And I would tell you that we don't have a retention problem at the Nourish Spot because our talent pipeline is full of
Wow.
former interns that have decided that they want to work for us. And so our lead manager right now, who's running my store
Hmm.
right now while I'm talking to you, he started with us as a 10th grader. His name is Denzel. And now
Uh-huh.
he is my lead manager, and he's a graduate of
Wow.
college. So I'm really proud of that as well.
That is brilliant. And I know that is going to be an idea that people are going to listen to this episode and go ahead and steal that because that is so smart. And it was really interesting to hear your background and how you got started and the steps that you took. I love how much you went after programs and knowledge and said, I'm going to do. I always emphasize just in time learning. Don't just get the knowledge. So you're getting the knowledge and you're immediately doing. You're
Yes.
doing and you're learning and putting it into action right away. How long was this process for you from getting the idea to actually opening your doors?
I would say it took about a year and a half, much longer than I
Okay.
thought. And I would tell you
Okay.
that the reason why, was because of my contractor. I had the worst
Uh,
contractor.
does anyone
Um,
ever find a really good contractor? I just, that is
I
a
don't think
common
so.
refrain.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't think so. I mean, I
How
had
was
a
it getting the location? Was that hard? Like getting actual space in New York and Queens?
That was divine. Let me tell you how that
Oh,
happened. So again, I told you I wear my faith on my sleeve. I was praying
yes.
one day, and once God said to me, "Oh, you can have this juice bar." I'm like, "Well, where is it?" That's kind of how I talk with my God. It's like, "Well,
Yes.
you told me I can have this, or where is it?" And
Right.
I was led outside in my community to our major thoroughfare. It's
Hmm.
called Guy R. Brewer Boulevard, formerly known as
Okay.
New York Boulevard.
Okay.
And this is going to sound crazy, but it's the truth. You know, I was told to go out on Guy R. Brewer and look up. And so I did. I went out on Guy Brewer. I looked up to the left and saw nothing and started to think I was crazy and hearing
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
But I was with my daughter and she said, Mommy, like, you got to look left and right. Like, don't get down yet, right? Look
Uh-huh.
right. Because remember, I was coming out of a grief process. So, she was treating me with kid gloves.
Hmm.
And so I looked over to the right, Nick, and I saw it. There was an awning across the street
Hmm.
from where I was standing, and it said DK Upholstery. My name is Dawn Kelly,
Wow.
and my business is in that place, and we have been there now 7 years.
Wow. Did you see a for sale sign or did you go and convince them
No,
to
I
give it to you?
convinced them. So what happened was
What?
the gate was down, right? The gate
Hmm.
was down and that sign was up. And so every day I would go because it's in my community. So every day
Right.
I would go around the corner, try to see if the gate was up or anything. And like it wasn't. And one day I was in a friend's car and we were crossing the boulevard, right? Going
Right.
from one side to the other side because you're in New York. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I happened to look out the window and I saw that gate was up. No lie, Scout's honor. I jumped out the car.
I know you did. I'm picturing it now. Yep.
I left the door wide open. I jumped out the car. I ran over to the door. I banged
Oh
on
my
the door.
God.
I said to the gentleman who was looking at me like I was crazy, and I said to him, "Sir," I said,
Yes.
"This is my place." I said, "I have to rent this place.
Oh,
Are you the
what?
owner? Are you the owner?" And he was like, "Ma'am, calm down."
Back up.
He was like, "I'm not the owner. I'm a workman. I was hired to fix this place up because yes, the
Hmm.
owner does want to rent it." He's like, and I think he might be right now working on renting it. And I was like, "Oh no, he's not." I said, "Oh no, he's not. This is my place." I said, "Can you please give me his name and number?" And sure enough, he did. He gave me the man's name and number. I contacted the landlord, a black man, okay, black
Yeah.
man, but kind of a gruff guy. And he pretty much told me to reach out to his real estate company,
Okay.
which I did. Another young black man. So all this is lovely to me because I'm an African American studies major from Howard, so that's like lovely. All these black people, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I go meet this young man at his
Hmm.
office, his real estate office, and I fill out all the papers. And this is one of the most funniest episodes in my journey. So I fill out all the papers and he takes the papers and goes in some office and then he comes back to me and he's
Uh-huh.
like, Miss Kelly? And I said, yes. He's like, I'm not sure we're going to be able to rent to you. And I said, why? He's like, you don't work. He was like, this is the first time in a long time anyone has come
Yeah.
here and try to rent something and they don't have a recurring paycheck.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm retired. And he said, well,
Hmm.
you don't look, I'm sorry, but you don't look like. And I said, well, that's not up to you. All I need to know is how much the rent is every month
Hmm.
and will the landlord rent to me. And I was very clear. I said, I have money, just like that. And he said, okay. He said, I can't promise you, but I'm going to share it with the landlord. So, you know how us sisters do.
Oh,
Once he
okay.
told
Good.
me
Good.
how
Good.
much
Good.
that was going to be, I went straight to the bank and I got a cashier's check for 3 months. And
Yep.
when that young man called me and said the landlord wanted to meet me, I walked over to meet the landlord in the space with the check in my back pocket. When I walked in,
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, when I walked in, this older gentleman said to me, hi, what do you want to put here? I told him I want to make this a food and beverage haven. He said, you don't work. Just like that. He said, you
Not
don't work.
again. Not this again. Yep.
Girl, I reached into my pocket. I pulled out that check. I opened it up for him to see. He took the check. He handed me the keys, closed them in my hand, and said, welcome.
Nice. That's a movie right there.
I have been in that space ever since. And so back to the contractor, I hired a contractor at the referral of some people that I really believed in. But here's the dig on that. He wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of them. Okay. And so how he treated me was based on the fact that I was a woman. And it was also because he didn't think I was as smart as I was. Now, I eventually got what I needed out of him, but it was very, very challenging, and it took too much time, and it took too much screaming and hollering. So I told him then, just like I'm going to tell you now, I told him that I would never recommend him for anything. And anytime anybody asked me about the experience, I was going to tell them that you have to be really, really clear, and you have to really go do some deep referral work on contractors, because a lot of them are awful and they don't keep their word. They take your money, and they don't follow up as they should. Now, luckily, like I said, I'm a hard charger. I'm not an easy lady. And so I made sure that I got what I needed from him, but it was way too difficult and it was way too long.
Sorry to hear that. The Product Boss, hosted by Jacqueline Snyder and Mina Kunlo-Sisep, is brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Take your physical product sales and strategy to the next level to create your dream life with hosts Jacqueline Snyder and Mina Kunlo-Sisep as they deliver a workshop-style strategy hour of social media and marketing strategies so you can up-level as the boss of your business. So I have an episode for you guys to check out. It's called Save Money by Eliminating Excess Packaging. If you are someone who is getting ready to create a product and you are thinking of doing all this packaging, you need to listen to this episode. Listen to The Product Boss wherever you get your podcasts. When I started podcasting, I knew I wanted to sell merch. So I started small with one t-shirt. Now I'm selling t-shirts, hoodies, joggers, mugs, you name it. And it's so easy, all because I use Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit $1 million stage. Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling beauty products or content plans, Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person point-of-sale system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, up to 36% better compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/hustlepro, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/hustlepro now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Again, that's shopify.com/hustlepro. As you were getting started, I know with juice spots, especially, you have to, any restaurants, you have to meet codes, right? You have to go out there, find out the codes you need to meet, and then do all these things. So first of all, this question is twofold. So one, did you look into that before you signed with the former owner of the place to make sure that, hey, I could transform this spot into what I need it to be? And two, was that why it took so long because you had to reform it to meet code?
So, number one, yes, I knew that the place needed to be remodeled because he had been using it as a church, kind of.
Okay. Okay.
So it had like platforms and places that I needed a level floor. I needed to put a bathroom in a certain place. And so the design that I wanted had to
Mm-hmm.
change the space. So that's number one. And I told him that I was going to be changing the space. And he was fine. Like I told him, as soon as I put that check in his hand, he was like, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so I was really happy about that. Second, the codes. One of the best things about going into business is I had a advisor from New York City. There's an organization called Small Business Services in New York City,
Yes.
and I was given a NYC Best advisor.
Okay.
That person pretty much held my hand from idea to ribbon cutting on the steps I needed to take in order to get a small business open in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And so she arranged for a compliance officer to come visit us at the space. And that person was very clear on where
Yes.
things needed to be. And so I worked with my architect to
Yes.
make sure that information was in the plans so that
Ah.
any contractor we hired would know up
Mm-hmm.
front where things needed to be.
Very, very smart. And by the way, guys, like Dawn, you are dropping so many gems. I'm going to do something that I have never done, which is to do a recap of these show notes with all the resources that Dawn has mentioned. So even if you're not local to New York, you can look at this and say, hey, let me see if they have this in my state or my area, because this is so helpful. So things like SCORE, that's national. And then you mentioned Streetwise MBA. I'm not sure if they're national,
Yes,
but it
they
sounds
are.
like it.
They're
Okay. And then
international.
yeah, everything else. We'll go back. We'll re-listen to this and we'll put all the links to everything, guys. So make sure to go to sidehustlepro.co/nourish spot and you will get all this info. All right. Okay. So let's move into opening your doors. And by the way, were you starting to get a little nervous? I mean, you're investing a lot of money. Like you said, you're retired. The income isn't coming in. So at this point, are you like itching to make money to start to recoup some of the losses?
Yes. Not only was I itching, I was crying. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Because I had thought that the build out would only take about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm using all my resources for this, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing coming in. This is all
Yep.
going out. And so, yes, every day I was like, what is happening? Oh my God, help me, Lord, help me, Lord. In fact, I even wrote a prayer. In our restaurant, I have an office space, small, but
Yeah.
still an office space. And it has a big blackboard on one of the walls. And I would
Yes.
tell you till this day, there's a
Yeah.
prayer that I wrote on that wall, asking God to help me not only get the store finished and open, but
Right.
also to help me actually meet the goals and objectives that I wanted for the store.
Mm.
And that prayer still sits there. So that's what I did. I just prayed myself through and talked to
Yeah.
myself and, in some cases got some people that could talk to the contractor and,
Yeah. Yeah.
shake him up and get him to do what he needed to do.
Yep. 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 I can see why that would be necessary.
But eventually, look, we got it all
Mm-hmm.
done. And we opened on September 9th, 2017. We did a big
Nice.
ribbon cutting. We had all the community there, all our elected officials, because
Oh,
one
wow.
one thing I didn't say to you
Mm-hmm.
is before I went to work for Prudential, I worked for York College as a director of public relations, which is like 3 blocks away from my store and my home. And
Oh,
so
okay.
in that role, I had to interact with all of the elected officials in my neighborhood. And so I
Oh,
had a great relationship with most of the community leaders, including our elected officials. So I was able to open up the store with them there. In fact, the New York City Council president now, Adrian Adams, the speaker, She was
Yes.
there at my opening. This
Nice.
was before she became speaker. She was a city councilwoman, but she was in fact there campaigning actually at the grand opening. So it was a wonderful day on September
Yes.
9th, 2017. That was one of the proudest days in my life.
Hmm. I am so impressed. And I mean, this is how you do it, you guys. I hope you're taking notes. This is so awesome. The way you went about this, and then having that support from the elected officials coming to the ribbon cutting, because like you said, they're then using the location, or they have the location in mind when they have a community event. And so it just continues to be resourced and supported. And I read that you were even in 2019, you were named what is that? The micro business of the
Of the
year by the U.S.
year.
That
Yeah.
is amazing. And then,
Yeah.
okay, you are certified as a minority woman business owner or
Yes.
enterprise and a woman
Yes.
business enterprise. Tell us about that process. Why it's so important for you to have all of these certifications, and also the DBE. What's that one?
Okay, I'll tell you about them all. So
Yes.
when now we're starting business and people are coming and whispering in my ear because there are people in your community that want to see you do well, right? Just like there's
Yes.
people that don't, there's lots that do. And
Right.
so people started whispering in my ear and telling me things that I didn't know. And so that's what's
Yes.
the most important thing is you have to be open, right? You have to be open to learning. Like I think learning is a lifelong journey. And so what my congressman actually, Gregory Meeks, he is the one that told me get certified. There are
Yes.
opportunities out there, but the only way you can take advantage of them is if you get certified. So the first certification that we sought was the New York City NWBE. And all of the certification processes, they are tedious but necessary, right? And once you have all your papers in place, you can pretty much use those papers to get all of the certifications. And so we did the New York City one first. Then we did the New York State one. And then we did this great one that I want to tell people about. So if you have an airport in your community or two, like we do, okay, in Queens, all right, it's important to get your ACDBE certification.
What's that stand for?
That stands for Airport Concession, AC, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise.
Okay.
All of those letters mean you're not a millionaire, right? And
yes.
You're not a millionaire and you're looking for opportunities in airports. So JFK and LaGuardia together are undergoing $30 billion renovations over the last couple of years, and it's still going on. And so the only way for small businesses like mine to engage in airports is to have that certification. So we went and sought that, and so we have that as well. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that certification has really proved valuable because we are now working with the Hudson Group, which is now called Avolta, in JFK Airport. So
wow, what does that look like? Do you mean like working on getting a storefront or working on some kind of fusion opportunity?
So there are 7 different ways, and we'll have to do another call for this one.
Oh, I know, right, guys? Sorry, this is a subtopic, but this is really fascinating to me.
Yes. There are 7 different ways for a small business to be in an airport, especially if you are in the catchment area of the airport. So they have tiers that go along with zip codes, right? So you have to be near the airport. But for us, we were tapped by Hudson Group, which is, Hudson News, like when you're in the airport, you go to the Hudson News stores. Okay. Well, we were tapped to be an equity partner. So that means now when you go into Terminal 5 and you buy something from a Hudson News, you buy something from me too.
What? Get out. What?
Yeah.
See, this is why I'm fascinated by this, because I would see it and say, oh, you just have this storefront. Oh, no. There's levels to this.
Yes. Oh, I love that, darling. Yes, there are levels to this. Because not only are we partnered up with Hudson, so
Hmm.
I've mentioned to you that we've been in business now 7 years.
Yes.
Um, we had to do a bit of pivoting during COVID, right? Because a lot of stores closed down and
Hmm.
we weren't allowed to let people come into the store. So we
Right.
had to get some handheld POS systems. We had to,
As
have an
point of
over.
sale systems. Yep.
Yes, we had to have an over reliance on our food delivery apps, our partners like Grubhub and
Hmm.
DoorDash. And so luckily we had those things in place before the pandemic hit. But now we had to, really, really work on the marketing and working with them
Right.
to make sure people knew that we were still open and available to
Yes.
nourish them, right? So we did all of that. And I tell you that we emerged out of COVID stronger than ever. We were tapped by New York City to be a vendor at Forest Hill Stadium, the first place where Arthur Ashe ever played tennis. We were
Wow.
a vendor there first, and we were the first ever Black owned vendor in that space in 2021. Can you believe that?
Amazing. And I know I can't believe that. I'm like,
But it's
what?
the truth. But it's the
Yeah.
truth. And I would tell you this, the amazing part of that is when I used to go to work every day, I took the Long Island Railroad and I used to
Hmm.
pass the Forest Hill Stadium and I didn't really know what it was. And I would tell myself every day, one day I'm going to go in there, I'm going to go check it out. The day we went there, I walked in with my daughter. Okay. And we walked in as owners of the Nourish spot who
Oh
were
my
being
gosh.
tapped to be a vendor for New York City's Welcome Back concerts. So we
Yeah.
did that for 2 years straight. Okay.
That gave me goosebumps, Dawn. Like that really gave me goosebumps because I'm a big believer in God shows you signs, but only in glimpses. And so when stuff comes back around like that, it's like, oh, chills.
You call it glimpses. I call it breadcrumbs along the way. Girl, I'm going to
Hmm.
tell you,
Hmm.
if we sit tight and we're reflective,
Yeah.
God has pretty much shown you what your road's going to be. You just got
Right.
to be open
Right.
minded to see it. And so
Exactly.
we graduated from there. We graduated from
Yes.
the Forest Hill Stadium into the U.S. Open.
Oh my gosh. You're trying to make me, I don't know why I feel so emotional. It must be the postpartum hormones because I feel like I'm going to tear up. I'm going to tear up.
No, listen, I cry every day.
Oh
I
gosh.
cry every day. Every day
Yes.
when I think about what God has done in my life,
Yes. Yes.
it's amazing to me. Okay.
Hmm.
And so we graduated to the US Open. We just finished our second residency there as a vendor in
Nice.
2023. This
Nice.
year, we also provided food and beverage service at Citi Field. They have
What?
yes, and I want to tell you this story real quick. On January 29th of this year,
Hmm.
2023, I went to an event. And so if I want to teach anybody anything, show up, get up, dress up, and show up. That's like the beginning of anything. And so I'm a member of the Queen's Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also a member of everything. Okay. Um,
I couldn't tell. I would have never guessed that.
I'm a member of everything. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So the Queen's Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with the Mets, was holding a visioning event at Citi Field. And so my daughter and I got up to go. Now, her birthday was the day before. She turned 32, and we went that day. And we went because we're a juice bar and, we're always looking for new places to show up, right? And why not the Nourish spot in Citi Field, right? Why not give the patrons of the Mets and the other events that they hold there an option, a healthy option, right? So we go to the event and we engage with all the little activations and the questions they're asking of the community about what would you want to see in a revitalized Citi Field area. When we finished that event, we went into this rotunda where they were giving out stadium food, like,
Yeah.
pretzels and hot dogs. So we sat down with all the rest of the people to eat the stadium food. While we were sitting there, these two gentlemen walked in and a TV camera was behind them. Now, what did I tell you I did for 30 years? PR. So whenever I see a TV camera, I'm like, who is that? And why is that camera behind them? So I gestured over to the head of the Queen's Chamber of Commerce. His name is Tom Greck. And I said to him, Tom, who who's those people? Why they got TV cameras? And he said to me, you don't know who that is? And I said, I don't. I don't know them by face. Maybe if you tell me what their name is, I will know their name, but I don't know these people by face. So he said, well, there's only one you really need to know. And I said, well, who is it? He said, that's Steve Cohen. I couldn't stop blinking my eyes. I said, wait, are you talking about Steve Cohen that owns the Mets? Are you talking about Steve Cohen that owns a hedge fund? Are you talking about Steve Cohen that is a partner in Citi Field? And he said, yes, Dawn, that's exactly who I'm talking about. And I said, sir, I need you to introduce me. And he said, follow me.
Oh, yes.
And so, Nick, I will tell you that the end of this story is I asked Steve Cohen point blank for a picture with me and my daughter, and second, for a position for the Nourish spot at Citi Field.
Wow. And what did he say?
Darling, we were there for 2 months in July and August of this year.
Yes. I love it. And so you also now, I would assume, have some kind of a relationship, right? Or he knows who you are.
Yes, he knows who I am, and all of his people know who I am. And so now I'm looking forward to what can happen next year, right?
Yes.
Because we
doing it even bigger.
Yes, because we had the opportunity to be showcased at the Taste of Queens cart for 2 full months, and not just for baseball games. We were there for the Burna Boy concert. We were there for the Pink concert. We were there for soccer games. Okay. So we got to share our brand, right?
Yes.
With so many new people that had never heard about the Nourish spot. And I would tell you this, a direct result of that was that people started coming to the Nourish spot using the delivery apps to order from the Nourish spot because they now know we exist.
And you know what I love about this? Because, if you're not from New York and you aren't familiar with the boroughs, so, Queens, it's out there. Well, at least for me, because I'm from uptown, right?
It is.
And so a lot of times when people are thinking of starting a business, they're thinking of, Manhattan or Brooklyn. But you are showing just how divine it can be sometimes to just start where you are. Because who would have thought, look at all these resources and connections you got just by being in Queens, by the airports, close to the Met Stadium. Like all of these things have happened because of location. So don't count your location out. Go find out every opportunity that's available in your location.
Exactly. Listen, I felt comfortable, right? While I was still afraid of opening my own business, I was comfortable in my community, right? Because I had relationships with so many different types of people and organizations, as well as my children. They also had relationships. So we could trade upon those relationships in order to make sure people knew what we were doing and how we could be of assistance to them as well. Because Jamaica's a food desert, right? Yeah. And a lot of people are grappling with food insecurity, as well as a lot of food-related diseases like diabetes and obesity and heart disease and gout. These are all illnesses that can be combated or treated with your diet, right?
Yeah, and the proper nutrients.
Right, and so that's why people say health is wealth. Because listen, if you're not healthy, all that other stuff doesn't matter, right? You can't take advantage of nothing else.
You can't take advantage of nothing else. That's it right there. And look, I want to hit on the financial piece of this, right? Okay. So what happened after you opened doors? Were you seeing a good amount of revenue, or was it a slow climb?
No, it was a very slow climb. And that's when, because it was such a slow climb, is when I realized I needed to start promoting. I needed to trade on my previous experience and make sure the world at large knew that we existed. right? And not just that the Nourish spot existed, but also to tell a couple of different kind of angles of my story, right? Here I was, a 52-year-old woman starting in a new business, a person that lost their job, right?
Right.
Looking for their next act, a community that was a food desert, right? Now providing fresh fruits and vegetables that people can use to create longer, more vital lives. The internship program. So I had a lot of different angles, right, that I could
Right.
promote the business. And so that's what
Right.
I did. I got about the job. And look, that's why you were one of my prayers, because you were on my list too. Okay.
I can't believe that. Wow.
You were. You were. You asked Sakita after this is all over when I
Uh-huh.
first asked about you, because I really realized then that I needed to make sure the world at large knew about us. So I started first with our community papers. Then I
Yes.
started branching out to like radio and podcasts. And then I started reaching out to international papers. So I'm
Yeah.
most proud of being in the Financial Times. I'm most proud of
Nice.
being in the BBC.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
I love it.
I'm most proud of being in commercials with Grubhub, right? My daughter and I were in a commercial with Grubhub. I really got about the business of marketing the business because,
Hmm.
there's another saying, I'm good for the saying. If a tree falls in the forest, if you don't see it, would you know? No.
No.
So I wanted to make sure that people knew the Nourish Spot existed. People knew what the Nourish Spot was existing for and what our why was and how they could help us help them.
As someone with your experience in public relations all these years, I also like the fact that you started yourself, you knew you could do it yourself, but you also knew when it was time to bring in more resources because you can't do it all.
No, not at all.
Even if
And
you're talented in the space. Yeah.
and then I went and took one more class. I gotta tell you, but this was
Say,
the big
no.
one. This was the
Which
big one. Once I made $75,000, right? Because it took a little while, but once I
Yeah.
hit that number and I made $75,000, I
Right.
reached out and I applied for the Goldman Sachs 10K SB program, and I
What?
got accepted, honey.
Mhm.
I got
Yes.
accepted.
My friend
And
runs that program. So you know Jessica.
I love Jessica Taylor. She knows me because they
Yes.
have tapped me.
Mhm.
Luckily, they have tapped me to be a speaker for the Black in Business program. They have
Nice.
tapped me to be a vendor at different events. So I tell you, I love the Goldman Sachs people. I am so indebted for that program because not
Yes.
only did I learn a lot, I gained a whole family of entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
It's like more than 14,000 people that have graduated from that program that are considered my brothers and sisters, if you will, that I can reach
Yeah.
out to for guidance, for help, to
Right.
partner with. So
Right.
that class, like if I
Mhm.
recommended all the other ones, I
Yeah.
definitely recommend the Goldman Sachs 10K SB program because it has set me up for life.
So I'm glad you mentioned that one too, because sometimes, and you guys know I wrestle with this on this show, because sometimes these classes or the resources or programs, I'm thinking, man, they really need to give businesses more money. But it's not just money that you need on
No.
this journey. Those connections, it's like going to business school. Like the majority of us, the main thing we come out with is that network that we can tap into at any time. So something like a Goldman Sachs small business program like that right there is something really good to tap into if you can and if you're able to and if you get in.
Grants helped us too. So
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. So tell us about, I know you got Beyonce and Anastasia, right?
Yes, that was the first big one. Oh my gosh. Okay. So what's funny is when I first started the business, I was running around asking everybody about grant money. I'm like, where's the grants? Right. Cause I was loath to spend my money. Right. So I'm like, if there's
Yeah.
grant money, I'm going to ask, but there was none available. But
Wow.
how God works. I mean, COVID was horrible, right? We lost lots of people to COVID, right? But in terms of what it did for a small Black owned business like mine, first, it made sure that more people knew about us, right? Because every doctor and medical professional was telling people to eat healthy. So they sent people to our doors. So that's number one. But also, it made people want to help, right? It made corporations want to help. And so I applied for using my PR background, writing great narratives, right? I applied for every grant that we were remotely applicable for. Okay.
Yeah.
Say if they had 5 things and I only had 4, I still applied. Okay.
Yes.
And we got them. We pretty much got every grant that we applied for. So I just recently saw a story in the paper about some girl that got $200,000 in grants. So did I.
You're like, no big deal. No. And what did you use the grant investment to do? How did it impact your business?
So the ones that we got in the initial of COVID, I helped to keep people on staff because some of the grant money was to keep people working, even though revenue wasn't as great, right? So to keep the lights on, and to make sure that my staff had what they needed. Some little bonuses for my staff as well, because, they were young people and I just felt like they needed a little bit more because a lot of them lost their graduation because of COVID. And so I'm trying to keep them upbeat. So that I did that with it. We got a $25,000 Wells Fargo grant right before we were going into the U.S. Open the first time. So I was able to use that money to get ready for the U.S. Open, because with the U.S. Open, we are responsible to bring everything. Right? Our staff, the food, the cups, the bowls, everything. And so that money came right on time for us to be able to be ready to go be a vendor and excel at the U.S. Open. So that's how I use the money. We use the money to build capacity.
So what are some of the top ones that you can name, since we're sharing, again, you guys were sharing all of the show notes from Dawn. You'll be able to go over to sidehustlepro.co/nourish spots, and we will send this recap to you. So what are some of the top ones that are still available each year? Do you know?
If you're a female entrepreneur, go on to Hello Alice, sign up, because they always have grants there. Okay. And then you can apply. So that's number 1. Number 2 is just go on Google and type grants, right? Right. And they'll just come up, and then you have to take the time to research them to figure out if 1 or 2 are good for you, and then you apply for them, right? We got the NAACP Bay Good grant, and she put us on the Black Parade. I tell you, I love that Beyonce. So we got that. We got the grant from Anastasia Swore, which I thought was wonderful. Here she is, a Romanian woman. Okay, she saw herself in Black female entrepreneurs that were trying hard and not able to get the money that they needed from usual and regular banks and lending institutions. And so she picked like 6 of us or 9 of us and gave us all this money.
Wow. I never knew that Anastasia had one. That's awesome.
Yes. And I would tell you, we did it just like this. She came online and they invited, like, I guess all of us winners. And so she came online and she's like, "Hi, Dawn." I'm like, "Hi." And I tell you, I thought I was going to be winning, I think, 50,000 or something like that. And this woman told me she was giving us $62,000. I damn near fell out my chair. Okay. Because I'm like, this is the time that we need it. We're in a crunch because, some people didn't have jobs. And so another thing I used the money for is I worked with one of my area nonprofits. It's called CMP Partnership. And they were giving away coats to kids, right? So what we did, we used some of the money, and every kid that got a coat got a coupon from us to come get food and a smoothie. And so that's how we used the money. We used the money to make sure that we were helping our staff, helping our business, and helping our business through helping the community.
Got it. And speaking of money, the restaurant space, the, food and beverage space, there's always a delicate dance when it comes to margins, I'm sure, because especially when you're in a community and that might be low income, there's only so much you can charge, but then you have a labor intensive and price variability with your ingredients. So how do you manage so that you're still profiting and the margins are as high as you can get them?
Well, how we do that is we layer it, right? So there's one way you do business with us. You do business with us as an individual. You walk in, you buy something. But I would tell you how we make our real money is with caterers. So we cater to big companies, Bloomberg, Nike, WPP.
Yes, you got it all figured out. See?
Yeah, MasterCard. We've catered in the World Trade Center. So that's how we are kind of like managing inflation, right? We we look for ways in which to showcase ourselves in different places.
Yes.
That I would tell you, case in point, today I'm conducting this podcast with you at Northwell Health.
Ooh.
Because they hired us early this morning to bring
Mm-hmm.
in breakfast for an event. And not only did they hire us to bring in breakfast for the event, they gave me an opportunity to address the crowd. Okay.
What?
So
Okay.
now there are about 80 more people from across
Mm-hmm.
New York City and New York State that are aware
Mm-hmm.
of the Nourish Spot. And I would tell you that I already have 3 new clients as a result of being here.
Dawn, you are brilliant. You're brilliant. You're talented. You're amazing. And this is why I love doing these interviews, because I never would have thought that you were doing all this. I thought, oh, she has a storefront juice bar. Okay. Like that's amazing. But I'm wondering, like, what's it looking like on the financial side? So you have completely blown me away, like beyond
Thank
what I
you.
could have imagined. And I hope that this, just shows you guys all the opportunities are beyond what's seen at face value when it comes to business many times. And you have to put your creative hat on and sometimes go into these programs too, like, 10,000 small business and things like that. What I like about those programs is when you get in your business and have your blind spots on, someone else would be like, well, have you thought about this? And they'll be coming from a knowledgeable space, not just how sometimes your friends and family be like, why don't you? And they have no idea how your business works or how things run. No, these are knowledgeable people. So Dawn, let's jump into the lightning round. You just answer the very first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. What's a resource, not Google, that has helped you in your business?
Chat GPT.
Oh, you're right. You're right about that. Okay. Who is a Black woman entrepreneur, not a celebrity, who you would want to switch places with for a day and why?
Okay. So you put that non-celebrity part in there.
I have to.
Okay. I'm going to say Miko Branch that owns Miss Jessie's.
Yes. Okay. And why?
Because she's been in business for a long time, and this is not her first business. She was in business before. And so she has a wealth of knowledge about, staffing, about distribution. And those are things like I'm looking, the next step for us is to have a CPG product, right?
Okay.
Either I'll see our dressings in stores or see our smoothies and juices and bottles in stores. So I would love to switch places with a Black female entrepreneur that has a CPG product.
Okay. Number 3, what is a non-negotiable part of your day these days?
Prayer. Every morning.
I feel that every morning. Hey friends, so sorry, but we lost the rest of the audio for Dawn's lightning round, but you can find her online over at the Nourish Spot on Instagram, as well as the-nourish-spot.myshopify.com. And we will link to all of those in the show notes. It was an absolute pleasure having Dawn in the guest chair. I learned so much. I think she is so dynamic and incredible. And if you are in Queens or New York, be sure to head over to 10705 Guy R. Brewer in Jamaica, Queens to check out the Nourish Spot in person. And with that, I will talk to you next week. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Side Hustle Pro. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other side hustlers just like you to find the show. And if you want to hear more from me, you can follow me on Instagram at Side Hustle Pro. Plus, sign up for my 6-bullet Saturday newsletter at sidehustlepro.co/newsletter. When you sign up, you will receive weekly nuggets from me, including what I'm up to, personal lessons, and my business tip of the week. Again, that's sidehustlepro.co/newsletter to sign up. Talk to you soon.